Investigation into the learning environments at Harvard, UPenn, and MIT after those university presidents testified this week at a House hearing on anti-Semitism.
Presidents came to Capitol Hill to defend themselves against accusations that they were not doing enough to defend their Jewish students, but ultimately got themselves into more trouble after university presidents from UPenn and Harvard were asked if calling for the genocide of Jews violated their code of conduct. They said it depends on the context.
Fox Business's Hillary Vaughn on Capitol Hill. All three presidents have since issued statements clarifying they do condemn anti-Semitism and calls for violence. North Carolina Congresswoman Virginia Foxx, who chairs the Education and Workforce Committee, says they will probe policies and disciplinary procedures and will issue subpoenas if needed. It's the first night of Hanukkah, but also 2 months to the day since the Hamas terror attack on Israel as fighting continues in Gaza.
Israeli military pushing hard against pockets of Hamas resistance, and especially in the south, believed to be the home base for the terrorists. Taking its toll, though, 90 Israeli soldiers said to have been killed. Also, the fighting taking its toll on civilians. Supposed safe areas reportedly hit by Israeli airstrikes in the south. Israel claiming the areas were used by Hamas to fire rockets.
Fox's Greg Palcott in southern Israel. The White House says talks aimed at freeing more hostages are ongoing, but that they're not close to a deal for another humanitarian pause. A retired police chief is sentenced to more than 11 years in prison for charges stemming from the Capitol riot, including conspiracy to obstruct Congress. 59-year-old Alan Hostetter was sentenced by the same federal judge who convicted him of 4 felonies in a bench trial. Stocks finish higher. The Dow up 63 points at the bell. America is listening to Fox News.
What's for dinner? Burgers?
After last week, no thanks.
Avoiding foods due to fear of diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools? It may not be just stomach issues. It could be EPI, or exocrine pancreatic insufficiency. EPI can cause uncomfortable symptoms because it's a condition where the pancreas doesn't release enough digestive enzymes to break down food. But EPI can be managed. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor about your symptoms. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
Brace yourself for the ultimate holiday deal with Consumer Cellular. Snag an incredible 50% off the Iris Flip when you buy before December 17th, making it only $34.50. The Iris Flip is all the phone and camera you need with a user-friendly design, the perfect flip phone companion. Plus, you'll get nationwide coverage and always free activation. Score 50% off when you use promo code RADIO50. Head over to consumercellular.com and use promo code RADIO50 during checkout to score this deal.
The same bacteria that prompted recalls of powdered baby formula last year has infected 2 infants this year, killing 1.
The Food and Drug Administration said the bacteria killed a child in Kentucky and has led to brain damage in a Missouri child. The FDA does say there appears to be no cause for any additional recalls. The Missouri child's health issues have lingered since a brain infection was diagnosed last March. The same bacteria led to a shutdown of a baby formula plant in Michigan, which caused a national search for formula, at one point importing it from overseas. The Michigan plant is still being monitored. The Missouri child's mom has joined the lawsuit accusing baby formula company Abbott of selling a defective product. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
An earthquake rattles Mexico City. Magnitude 5.8 hits south of Mexico's capital, setting off an earthquake alarm system and sending people out of office and apartment buildings, but no reports of any damage or injuries. Amazon is ditching Venmo as a payment option.
The e-commerce giant will no longer accept Venmo as a payment method as of January the 10th. But PayPal service will be available to users who currently have it in their Amazon wallet until the 24th. A PayPal spokesperson tells Fox Business that both companies agreed to disable the payment option on Amazon's website and mobile app, but customers can continue to add their Venmo debit card or credit card to their Amazon wallet to pay for Amazon purchases. Currently, brands including McDonald's, Starbucks, Domino's, DoorDash, Uber, Microsoft, and GoFundMe have added Venmo as a payment option at checkout.
Fox's Hillary Barsky. Recapping stocks, the Dow and the S&P snap a 3-day losing streak. The Dow up about 63 points, the S&P up 36 points, but the Nasdaq leads the way, up more than 1%, a gain of 193. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News.
I'm Justin Ike, co-owner of Fred's Plumbing, Heating, Air Conditioning, Electric, and Underground.
So, Justin, tell me what you see as typical when it comes to sewer repair. Give me a scenario.
Your sewer's backed up and somebody comes along and says, you need this repair for X amount of dollars. Here's my price. And you don't think to go looking for another company or a second opinion because you don't feel like you have time.
So is it possible that you might get charged a little more because it's kind of a desperate moment? Do some companies do that?
Oh, absolutely they will. They know you're in a pinch. Typically, if you call us, me or Will can be out there within an hour to look at that problem for you. Whether you call me first or you call me second, make sure you give me a call.
Anything else, Justin?
You can always trust Fred's.
Great to know. Thank you. That's Justin Ike, the co-owner of Fred's Plumbing, Heating and Air Conditioning, Electric, and Underground. If you want more information about this great 45-year family-owned company, just go to fredscu.com. That's fredscu.com.
Hello again, everyone. Let's check weather for East Central Illinois. Champaign-Urbana vicinity and a delightful spell of so-called December weather coming our way over the next several days, especially with temperature in mind. And the next weather system appearing to be all rain across the area. Some additional drought relief early on into the weekend. There is a change back to more seasonal temperatures and perhaps a couple of snowflakes in the air as well at some point late in the weekend or early next week. In the meantime, mostly sunny, turning windy and milder this afternoon, up to 54. Almost 15 above average. Southwest wind on the increase at 15 to 25 and gusty. A few clouds for tonight. Breezy 43 for the low. Tomorrow windy and seasonally mild. There could be a stray shower in spots late in the day and up to 57. Tomorrow night shower activity expands across the area. Lows in the lower 50s up to 56 and then falling temperatures Saturday afternoon. Some shower activity especially in the morning hours. For Sunday, maybe a snow shower in spots in the morning. A dry Monday. High temperatures in the upper 30s and lower 40s. For CVG Broadcasting Meteorologist Greg Solier.
I'm back. What's up?
What's up?
It's the Drive with Sam Piper, kind of. Derek Piper, Kyle Tosk. Lon's worn out, man. 3 straight days of radio. And,
he declared himself as a game time decision at the end of the show yesterday.
Did he?
So he went through warm-ups today, and he couldn't give it a go, so he's out. They ruled him out.
Did he actually say at the end of the show yesterday he was maybe going to be here?
I thought he was joking, but apparently
not. Okay. All right. The streak continues. Someone dig it back up. I don't want Kyle to do it. Well, no one put the effort in, but I would just wonder if anyone has an idea of the last time Lon's put a full week in. Let's think on that, reflect, and let's take some guesses. Maybe we can create a contest and then actually do the work and find out the real answer. But his streak goes on. I'm back here. My one day in the studio this week. Fortunately and unfortunately, but I've been having some fun on the road, and we'll be hitting again tomorrow to make the drive to Knoxville. But I'm back from New York.
How was it?
It was awesome. It was awesome. Being in the building there at Madison Square Garden, it was as fun of a game as I've covered. I've been doing this probably close to 10 years now, and there, of course, have been some through the years that are very, very memorable. Some Iowa battles, Illinois-Iowa, of course, regular season finales that have been fantastic. Illinois going into overtime and winning the Big Ten tournament against Ohio State. There are some that are certainly on the power rankings, the top 5, the top 10 lists. But just knowing, I think FAU is legit, and they went to the Final Four for a reason last year. I don't think that's a Cinderella that just for a stretch of time turned into some powerhouse, and then all of a sudden they're back into a pumpkin. That's a really good team. And Illinois was able to obviously get it done in a high-scoring affair. I wondered if they were going to be able to, if it was kind of a shootout type of game, if they could put up enough points. But, yeah, just walking in there and knowing, number one, it's the Garden. There's a mystique about it. There's just something special about that venue and the history of it, and knowing it's one of the most, I don't know, the most famous and well-known and prestigious arenas in the world, really, especially when on the basketball side. But then you get those different fan bases in there, and you see North Carolina fans walking around. UConn had a strong showing too. Not as many Illinois and FAU fans, but it felt like a regional. It felt like, all right, this is the Sweet 16. You're going to have 2 games. The winners are going to play each other in the Elite 8, and one team's going to go to the Final Four. Of course, it wasn't that because it's still only December, but that's kind of how it felt, knowing the type of teams that were in that building. And look, Illinois really, really impressive, 33 apiece from Shannon and also Damask. It was a show that both those guys put on, and couldn't believe what Marcus Damask was doing, just the confidence he was displaying, and being able to, especially there in that second half, scoring 25 of his 33, and down the stretch of that one, just having responses, because FAU never went away, man. It felt like Illinois, how well they were playing, should be extending this thing out and about ready to put the lead in their pocket and never give it up, which they didn't give it up. But you see FAU make a play, and you look up at the scoreboard, and it's a 4-point game with still like 3 minutes left, 2.5 minutes left. And it's like there's still enough time for this thing to flip down the stretch. Illinois, to their credit, didn't let it happen. And that feels like a monster win. It feels like a bona fide, not going to have to question it, quad 1 win that's going to extend out, obviously, through to Selection Sunday and be one that looks really good on your resume. But I was really impressed. I was really impressed by the Illini. I think that they've obviously taken some big strides offensively within the last week. Defensively, when you give up 89, I mean, I'm not questioning and saying Illinois was fake defensively. They're not as good as maybe we thought. I've still wondered, are they in the very, very top echelon? Although they've got reasons and statistics that support that they're definitely one of the best defenses out there in the country. But when you get a legit number 2 scoring option next to a guy like Shannon, who's putting more and more on that resume, there's still a bigger sample size that needs to play out, but more and more on that resume for, hey, this is a legit All-American candidate. This is a guy that, he had draft people. You had Jonathan Gavoni of ESPN in the building who said, hey, he looks like a first-round pick. And I know that Sam Vecini of The Athletic put him in the top 25 in terms of his big board for the NBA draft. So that guy is leading your charge. You need enough around him to go to the places this team wants to go. Marcus Damask to play like that, is he going to score 30-plus again this season? I'm not sure, but I just think his assertiveness, understanding what his role is, and then Illinois also getting some nice contributions from some other places was really impressive. So it was a fun night to be there. It was a blast, and I'm ready to see another big-time clash on Saturday as well.
Well, to your earlier point about FAU, I think an indicator of how legit they are is the fact that you shot 63% from the floor. You had 2 guys go for 33 on absurd efficiency, and you could barely put them away in the game. I mean, you beat most teams in the country by 30 if you get that type of output, like Illinois did. Did you have any idea that Marcus Damask had that in him? I think we knew that he was a good player. He's a guy that was capable of creating his own shot and exploiting certain matchups with his size. Did you have any idea 33 on 15 of 21 shooting, and a guy that just took over a portion of that second half was somebody who he was going to be? And do you think that he can be a true number 2 scoring option next to Terrence Shannon for the rest of the season?
I think he needs to be for Illinois to have the season they wanted to have, and I think he can be a number 2 legit as far as establishing that for Illinois. Did I think he had 33 in him? I didn't expect that for sure. I mean, I know he had topped 30 twice at SIU last year, but I think 31 or 32 against Cal Baptist, it's not anywhere near the competition level that it was against FAU. And yes, he had a size advantage, and that was one thing I think Illinois really took advantage of, knowing that FAU plays 4-guard lineups. They don't have, especially on the wings and the forward spots, that's 6'5", 6'6", 6'7". So I thought that's to the Illinois' credit of hunting out those weak spots, getting him in mid-post actions, which we've talked about in recent weeks, and saw it against Rutgers at times, and obviously they played even more into that. But it wasn't just the mid-post that he was scoring. I mean, he was getting to the rim, he was shooting pull-up jump shots, hit a couple threes. I thought, and based on what I had heard in the offseason, that he could be Illinois' second-best offensive player for sure. Coleman Hawkins, I think, obviously still in the realm of second-best player overall because of what he does defensively. But I knew that he could be someone that could score 20 on a given night, that could be a really nice piece. And I've been high on what his season would look like. But to that extent, no, I didn't forecast that coming. We'll see what his stat lines look going forward. But, I mean, it's not like this is a one-off. Like, to that level it is. But 18 against Marquette was pretty good too. Mm-hmm. So this isn't just one nice performance against a really good team. But I do think, kind of to circle it back, I think Illinois needs him to continue to be aggressive, to be that number 2 next to Shannon, because I just feel like he has the most to his game offensively than anybody else other than Shannon on this team. Goody's a nice spot-up shooter. Hawkins, we'll see if he can get that. It feels like a broken record saying we'll see if he can get that three-point shot a little more consistent. To his credit, he had a big 3 down the stretch. That was a big play for Illinois. I just feel like Marcus has it in him, and now is just playing with a lot of confidence. And Shannon's really, gassing that up as much as possible. Like, hey, I'm in his ear all the time. I think he's one of the better players out there. It was great. It's great.
How much do you think, when looking at this offensive performance, I think there's some people out there that look at it and are like, listen, are you going to ever get 33 on this absurd of a level from these two guys again? Is it you shoot 63% from the floor and two guys are unconscious in the second half? Is that sustainable, or is this a game where, maybe you just had your absolute best from a couple of guys show up? Do you think that this is a team that we should have confidence can win a game and put up 90 points in a shootout level game? Or do you think that, are you still holding out judgment a little bit? I don't mean to put a damper on how great that performance was.
I've heard that out there some. To just say it specifically, I was listening to the Field of 68 podcast afterwards. Jeff Goodman, Rob Doster, John Fanta, all there in the building. And guys, I'm very curious and wanted to hear what the national perspective of Illinois after that game was going to be. And the Athletic just put out their power rankings today and have Illinois number 9. So that's a team that's a team that they're buying into at a legit level to put them up there. And the metrics on Illinois are pretty good right now. Ken Pom, I think they're 14th or something like that. And the net, they're 22nd. So I get the question. And look, I think it's also, if you're even asking it as an Illini fan, it's probably rooted in last year's wins.
Absolutely.
Early. The UCLA win and then the Texas win. And look, we had to ask the questions as the season went on and things went off the rails. And we're like, was that just were those one-off performances? Were they fluky? How sustainable was that when Shannon hits 8 threes against UCLA, when Matthew Meyer goes nuclear in the first half against Texas, and so on and so forth? So to answer your question, is Damas going to score 30 again in a game? I think he could. If I were to bet on it, I don't know how many more we're going to see exactly like that. But then again, if Illinois' defense is as good as they think it is and as good as it's been on paper to this point, they probably won't need it. I don't know if they'll give up 89 again this year.
Yep.
So I think, FAU is that good offensively. And from Shannon's standpoint, Shannon can put up 30.
Oh, for sure.
I got no questions about him doing that to anybody.
Is he one of the front runners for the National Player of the Year as we sit today? I know it's early December, but that guy has to be playing like one of the best players in college basketball.
Yes. Ken Pom has a Player of the Year chart, power rankings chart, and he's 4th right now. He's 4th in the country. Zach Edey, number 1. Kyle Filipowski for Duke, number 2. Jaden Ledee, number 3 from San Diego State, and then Terrence Shannon, number 4. And for context, I was digging this up for an article that I'm going to write. Ayo and Kofi, when you go back to that 2020-2021 season, I think Ayo was 6th at the end of the year, and Kofi was 7th. Ayo, of course, that season was a first-team All-American. Kofi a second-teamer the following year. Kofi was 8th on the Ken Pom chart for Player of the Year, and then Kofi, as far as the All-American list, was a first-teamer. So right now, the resume for a guy that's averaging 22 points a game, he's shooting above 50% from the field. He's shooting 45% from 3, 75% at the free throw line. And, oh, by the way, he's been a lockdown defender. Like, a big reason why you win that game against FAU is because one of their two-headed monster, Elijah Martin, had a really tough time getting going because Shannon, with his size, Martin at 6'4" or 6'3", 6'4", and Shannon obviously 6'6" and very, very athletic, didn't allow him to get clean looks, especially inside the arc. So he was having to settle from threes and went 1 for 7 from beyond the arc. So he's been a really impactful defender. He's been great at the offensive end, and just I think he's carrying himself like an alpha. I think he's stepping up in moments that you notice that stars tend to say, okay, my team needs me here. I'm gonna step up here. I think he's more vocal. So you're getting everything you could ever ask for up to this point out of Terrence Shannon. Yes, he had a good first month of last season too, so we'll have to see him extend that thing out and push forward. But yes, to your question, based on what we've seen so far out of everybody in the country, Terrence Shannon is on a very short list of guys that are All-American candidates, and if you had to make the list today, he'd definitely be a first-team All-American.
Man, it's going to be so hard to take down Zach Edey for any of those awards, but this season that he's putting together so far, I know there's a whole Big Ten season left, but it does just feel like, I know you wrote about it over the weekend, it just feels like he's on a different level than last year. Even with, I get it, he had that incredible performance against UCLA, and he had a great first month, and then in Big Ten play, he shot like 29%. And is he going to shoot 45% from three all year? Highly doubt it. I do think he is. I think he's going to be a much improved overall three-point shooter. He's already shown that. And it feels like he's just more consistently assertive to me. Like he knows this is his team. And it feels like if he gets a lane, whether that's in transition, whether you give him a ball screen to get to his left hand, nobody is going to stay in front of him, and he knows it now. And it feels like he's taken his game to a different level, and maybe that isn't necessarily even skill-wise, because he's always had this level of talent and downhill ability. He has improved the three-point shot, but it feels like almost mentally he feels like more of the alpha on this team. He feels like this is his team. He's taken on, I'm going to guard their best player and shut him down, and then I'm also going to go on the offensive end and assert myself from early in games. I don't know. It feels like Illinois has one of the best players in the country at this point. He's got to show it for a whole season, but that gives me so much confidence knowing, hey, more times than not, maybe save for Purdue, Illinois is probably going to have the best player on the court in a given game. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's got to feel pretty good to know that, at least based on what we've seen so far. And look, Ayo is in a very rare air at Illinois, right? Like I want to be careful about making that comp too much because Ayo had a bigger sample size, did it throughout multiple seasons, and obviously, was a first-team All-American and whatnot. Not that, Terrence had a nice season last year, first-team All-Big Ten is nothing to scoff at, but and leading a team to a Big Ten. Technically a Big Ten tournament title, should have been at least a share of a regular season title, a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. So there's still more for Terrence to accomplish. But kind of on the point that I make, like there was such a level of confidence, such a vibe about Illinois because Ayo was leading it. Like Ayo was a guy that you knew in big spots you could trust to make plays. Just kind of the overall vibe about a team, knowing that was the face of the whole operation. There's some of that vibe starting to pick up with Terrence. Like I think just trusting him, and I think that competitiveness that Ayo carried about him, I'm sensing that now in the way that Terrence wants to be that guy on defense. Like that is something that rubs off on a lot of other people within your program, within that team. When your number one scoring option, when your number one star wants to guard the top option on another team that wants to dial it all the way up, knowing they're going to carry a heavy load on offense, but to fight that hard on defense as well. And I think that, yeah, he's just more comfortable in it. I think part of it is someone that wasn't in a star role before last year. So him having to get acclimated to that, to go through some growing pains, probably learning, this is what a star does, and had to, take some lumps through that where he was too passive at times, and obviously, only lost some games along the way there, and just maybe picking his spots or learning and having to hear from the coaches like, hey, this is what we need you to do internally as far as locker room chemistry, points in practice where we need your voice to speak up and whatnot. And it sounds like he's a different guy on that sense too, and that's behind the scenes stuff that we don't really see. But I that's kind of vibe or the narrative on him right now. And I think that just overall, and I don't want to, but I'll say it because it's a thought in my mind. I wonder if Matthew Mayer not being here makes it easier on him at all in terms of understanding who the dude is.
I totally agree with that. But I think that's obvious to me.
Yeah.
I felt like there was a dynamic last year with those two that it was like
they weren't necessarily on the same page.
No, they weren't.
It didn't feel like,
and it felt like, and I mentioned this to Lon earlier in the week. Like it felt like last year it was very rarely were those two guys on at the same time.
Yes,
and able to coexist in the same game. It almost felt like you felt early in a game, all right, this is going to be a Terrence game or this is going to be a Mayer game.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't feel like there were very often, I'm sure there were a few games, but it didn't feel very often where we had a game like Tuesday with Shannon and Damask where they coexisted so perfectly and it just meshed together. It felt like they kind of switched off. Well, this is my team tonight. Now this is your team the next night. I agree with that thought that I think that that's noticeable to me.
Yeah, I think they were on just different wavelengths, and not that for guys who struggle to be going at the same time doesn't necessarily mean that there's internal friction.
Right.
Like, I remember having the conversations earlier on in Brad's tenure, like, why can't Io and Trent have a good night together? And we like talked about that for a while. Obviously, it played out to where they ironed that thing out and figured it out. But it feels like Damask fits better with Terrence. I feel like Damask is more of a, I don't know. I think to say it, bluntly, I think he's probably more of a team guy than Mayer was. Not that Mayer wasn't someone that people liked as a dude in the locker room. Not that they didn't respect his talent. He was just a little different. And
safe to say
it was a little different, as we know. And I think he was a little more maybe individually focused. That's just kind of the gauge I got from it. So, but I think it does have a lot to do too, not just the surrounding parts with Terrence. It's just kind of his own growth and maturation. I think he just is more comfortable and understands it's his team, and obviously has worked on his game. I'd say in terms of we'll get a bigger sample size because right now you still have you've played a couple of challenging games, but outside of that you have faced a number of cupcakes too. So I think some of some of the stats are weighted,
sure, still,
but like the improvement from 2, like shooting like 50%. I had it up here. He shot 40 or 53% from 2 last year. That's up to 63% this year. I just feel like he's finishing better at the rim.
Yes.
Now when you're going to go through a Big Ten season where obviously it's very compact in the paint and people are going to try to take away that from him, and we'll see if he can do a better job of finishing through contact than he did last year, or just pick his spots better. I think so far he's done a better job of that. When he gets cut off, he then has better awareness to kick it out to the corner or just make the right play within the offense. And then obviously, he's shooting the cover off it from 3 and even flashed a little bit of the mid-range game too in that game in MSG.
Yeah, I also feel like it has been noticeable that his playmaking has improved a little bit as well, where it feels like he realizes how much gravity he's going to draw when he goes to the rim, and I feel like he's creating offense through that when guys come over to help and he maybe doesn't have an angle to the rim, he'll kick it out to the corner, and that's how Illinois has generated some shots. And the assist numbers may not reflect that because you're going to get more ball movement. It's going to be the hockey assist kind of more so than Terrence getting the assist. But I feel like that's another area where last time it felt like there were certain times where he'd be like, all right, I'm driving to the bucket here, completely out of control, hoping for a foul or hoping I can finish through 2 guys. And this year I feel like you're right. He's picking his spots a little bit more, and he's realizing when maybe he doesn't have an angle, and he's creating offense more so than just for himself. But it's been a joy to watch him play so far, and I do feel like there's a lot of things that he's shown that makes me think that this is going to continue and that he is going to be this type of guy all season. And it's not going to be like last season. And hey, he had some phenomenal performances in Big Ten play. I mean, it's not like he fell off a cliff last year, but I feel like we're going to see more consistency from him. You've already seen that. I think you look at his game log so far, and I know a lot of these are against low majors, but it's been very consistent in terms of the output.
Yeah.
Like, he really hasn't had an off night all year. I know he didn't play great against Marquette in terms of efficiency, and he turned it over, but he still gave you, 20-something in that game and made some shots. Like, the consistency's been there so far. I think it'll be a big-time challenge on Saturday for him. But, man, he's been great.
Yeah, I mean, even just do it for the high major games.
Yep.
And let's throw FAU in there right now because they're, obviously performed like a high major and went to a Final Four. So 33 against FAU, 23 against Rutgers, 21 against Marquette. And I know, is it Bill that's going to hate me for this? 28 against Kansas.
Yeah, I mean, you got to throw that in. That was him versus McCullough, two of the best wings in college hoops going at it, and he was phenomenal in that game. We don't need to wipe that out because it was an exhibition.
I agree.
He was fantastic in a win against Kansas, who's top 5 in the country.
Right. Yeah, and let's as we wrap up this first segment, and I'm going to put a question out to the text line before we catch a break, but I'm not going to be here tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday, and I think that Illini fans are deserving of cheersing this organization, this franchise, this team. There was a squad that had Terrence in for a workout, if you think back to the summer. The Orlando Magic, who had an early second-round pick and an opportunity to take him in a spot where you could get some guaranteed money, a lot of guaranteed money potentially on how they worked that deal. And Terrence was a little on the fence at the end where it's like, all right, if they give me a promise that they'll take me in the early second round, I'm probably going to go. I'm probably going to stay in the draft. They ultimately did not go that far to guarantee him that spot. They ultimately, I think, traded that pick where they ended up I forget who they ended up taking, but I think Illini fans should cheers the Orlando Magic because if they would have said, hey, we want that guy, and that could have been the end of Terrence Shannon in Champaign, where really you added him 2 summers ago, and there was, at that time, very little, if no expectation that he was going to be here 2 years.
Right. So none. I don't think there was any, right?
No.
Even at the end of last season, there was barely any.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure
there was talk of NIL and what
I'm sure you...
do.
Based on who you talked to, like, I'm sure you'd heard that maybe it was a possibility.
Yeah.
But, like, in terms of just the general public's thought, even at the end of last season, it was like, all right, well, we got to replace Terrence next year because he's going to the draft.
Right. So how about we cheers one of the Orlando Magic because Illinois is going to enjoy the rest of this season.
Are we playing it? Are we doing it Thursday? Are we?
Let's do it.
All right.
Happy hour.
So one of the best players in college basketball to Illinois fans enjoying the rest of him this season. I won't be here tomorrow, so I had my own cheers that I wanted to offer up. But hit us up on the U of I Illini Link text line 217-359-2255 as we go along. Any thoughts on Illini basketball, the win on Tuesday against FAU, the matchup that we'll talk a little bit before I get out of here about Illinois and Tennessee coming up on Saturday. Let me leave you with this. How much are you buying Illinois right now? If you were to let me do a vibe check. Coming off of the win against FAU in the Jimmy V, how much you buying it? What, do you think that they're a top 10 team in the country like the Athletic put out there today? Are you still waiting and seeing what Saturday looks like? Just let me know as far as the Big Ten, as far as their ultimate ceiling, where they're going into the tournament, what this year's going to look like. I want to know what that looks and sounds like after that win against the Owls on Tuesday. We'll return to talk more Illini basketball. This is The Drive.
Illini fans, gear up to support your Fighting Illini men's and women's basketball team this year at the official fan store of the Fighting Illini, Game Day Spirit. From buy one, get one free basketball t-shirts to official NIL merchandise, Game Day Spirit has everything you need to support your Fighting Illini. Shop with them in store at the corner of Neal and Kirby in Champaign, 6th and Green in Campustown, or online 24/7 at GameDaySpirit.com. Game Day Spirit, where Illini fans shop.
These days, it seems like bank names are changing faster than a forecast in February. But at Iroquois Federal, we're still the same community bank we've always been. For more than 135 years, we've built relationships by helping build the things that matter, whether it's a business, a back porch, or the building blocks of a better life. If you're looking for a bank that's here for the long haul, Swing by today and see for yourself why different rules. Iroquois Federal, still friendly, still local, still here.
Hey, could you tell me what aisle your car batteries are in?
Sure, I'll go grab one for you. Here's your battery. It might be expired, but oh well. Also, the brand isn't that great, but it should work for at least a year or two, maybe. Anyways, I went ahead and charged you for it, and here's the battery. Okay, have a great day.
What just happened?
Sometimes good things are hard to find, but they're worth the wait. Make the trip out to Interstate All Battery Center at 2504 North Mattis Avenue and get all of your battery needs taken care of by the trusted professionals. Give them a call today at 355-4855.
Bet like the pros with the world's largest sports book right at your fingertips. Circus Sports is now available in Illinois. Hi, I'm Derek Stevens. I've been a lifelong sports bettor, and I'm the owner of Circus Sports. We're excited that the Circus Sports app is now ready for action. Experience big app bets with high betting limits, tight money line splits, and more. Now you can download, fund, and bet like a pro from anywhere in Illinois. Download your new bookie today at circusports.com. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234.
Don't miss your chance to cheer on Fighting Illini basketball this season.
Deafening in here, 15,000, another shutout.
We need all of Illini Nation to help us defend State Farm Center.
And Illinois overcomes their largest deficit of the season.
Great seat locations are still available for you to see Illinois basketball live this season. The Illini win it! Get your tickets today at fightingillini.com.
PDR Automotive has now been serving the Champaign-Urbana area for over 50 years. To give you some perspective, 50 years ago ended the U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War, and it was when Secretariat won the Triple Crown. So what does that mean for you and your vehicle? Whether you need a carburetor overhauled or your new vehicle computer system diagnosed or programmed, PDR Automotive has the experienced, knowledgeable staff that can handle all your automotive needs. Online at pdrauto.com, they are what's best for your truck or car. They are PDR.
ILLINI. Cheer on the Illini at Pia's. The pregame fun starts at Pia's Sports Bar and Grill. Pia serves up its famous 10-ounce Slugger Burger along with great wings and so much more. Enjoy 350 22-ounce light and Coors Light drafts every home and away Illini game. Watch the game at Pia's or ride the free shuttle to all home games. You'll find it all at Pia's with live video gaming, sports, food, drinks, and fun. See you at Pia's, West Springfield Avenue in Champaign.
Like every bank, there's a time every day when we stop making loans. But at Iroquois Federal, we never stop making a difference. Thanks to an amazing team of employees who give back to their local communities all over central Illinois. From hospital boards and local school programs to Kiwanis and the United Way, Iroquois Federal employees donated more than 1,000 volunteer hours last year. And we'll do it again next year, because the only thing we like more than making a loan is making a difference. Iroquois Federal, still friendly, still local, still here. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
I've got to clean out this garage. Let's see. What's the cheapest and easiest dumpster service in our area?
Here's what I found. The doggy bag.
Think she's broken. I'm not looking for takeout. Siri, try again.
The doggy bag from Bulldog Disposal in Mahomet.
Doggy bag? What's that?
If you got junk that needs to go, but you don't want the hassle of having an enormous dumpster delivered, grab a doggy bag, keep it as long as you need. They'll come take it away. For more information, just visit bulldoggybag.com.
That's bulldoggybag.com.
Don't miss your chance to cheer on Fighting Illini basketball this season.
Deafening in here, 15,000, another shutout.
We need all of Illini Nation to help us defend State Farm Center.
And Illinois overcomes their largest deficit of the season.
Great seat locations are still available for you to see Illinois basketball live this season. The Illini win it! Get your tickets today at fightingillini.com.
Back on the drive with Sam Piper, ESPN Radio 93.5. Yes, Maxwell, no Lon today. Load management, as he says, Maxwell's words, not mine. Load management strikes again. That is the case. We give Lon a hard time, but I think he deserves it a little bit.
I mean, for all the things that he says to me, I got to have my one thing on him, huh? I mean, come on.
He keeps giving you the ammo, so we got to continue to use it on him. But I mentioned it before the break. Hit us up, U of I Illini League text line 217-359-2255. What's your updated take on this Illini basketball season? How bullish are you after the Jimmy V Classic win? Are you still holding out and waiting to see what the game on Saturday looks like? A really tough environment that's going to be 11 a.m. Central at Tennessee, a Vol squad that I didn't get a chance to see any of their game against George Mason or really know a whole lot about it other than they won.
All I know is Dalton Knecht did play in that game. So
did play.
Should be good to go Saturday.
Full allotment of minutes, I'm guessing? They might not have needed it.
They might not have needed it. Yeah, I don't know.
Because
I know he didn't have a great game, but
he had the ankle against UNC. They won 87-66. He played 25 minutes, 10 points, 4 for 11 from the field. Yeah, pretty pedestrian for a guy that put 37 on the Tar Heels in that one.
How awesome is that matchup? Terrence Shannon versus Dalton Knecht. That's probably two first-team All-Americans as we sit today going up against each other. Now, I know Knecht doesn't get very high marks on the defensive end, so maybe he won't be guarding Terrence. I'm sure Terrence will be guarding him.
100%.
That'll be awesome.
That'll be a lot of fun. A lot of fun. I will say, though, and it's going to transition to the question I want to ask you, is that it will be a little bit of a, I don't know, bummer's probably the wrong word, but a little jarring. Like if this turns into like a 62-55 rock fight on Saturday after what we saw offensively. It was fun. That was such a fun brand of basketball to watch. FAU and Illinois, 98-89. It only shoots 63% from the field. But I asked you off the air and waited for your answer, and I'll ask you again. Defensively, now let me kind of, for a funny story a little bit, there was a 5-minute stretch of this game where I didn't see a whole lot. I tweeted about it. I was spotted up 2 rows behind the FAU bench, and they were standing for a lot of the possessions at the other end. So there was some of that game I did not witness other than looking up on the video board and kind of watching there. Fortunately, it was not a completely packed house, especially like it filled up big time for the UNC-UConn game, but I was able to go a few rows back into the stands themselves and find a spot. But even then, it's sometimes easier to see on TV kind of the way certain plays play out, certain breakdowns, you see replays. So I ask you defensively for Illinois, who's still on KenPom is the 11th best defense in the country as far as efficiency goes. Was FAU that good offensively, or was Illinois having breakdowns that they hadn't had up to that point to where you allow that many points?
I'm not all that concerned about the defensive performance. I think there was a stretch in the first half where Illinois was really active on defense. It was probably the last 5 to 10 minutes of the first half where I thought they were doing a phenomenal job, and FAU scored because their third-string big man banked in a 3 and a couple other guys that never shoot it, and that Illinois, Dane was in there playing drop and not respecting his shot, and he knocked a couple threes down. Like, I don't care about that. I think in the second half, it was just such a unique pace to that game where I don't know. I'm not all that concerned. Nothing stood out to me in terms of like a breakdown. I think the biggest thing was that Vlad Golden was a problem when he was in the game. Illinois had no answer for him whatsoever. Did he? I think he had 23 points in 18 minutes.
Yes.
That, if there's one thing that I'm going to take from this game as a concern on the defensive end, it's that when Zach Edey you're going to face off against Zach Edey this year, when you're going to face off against Khalil Ware this year, when you're going to face off against who else? The Big Ten lost some big guys, but
yeah, those are probably the 2 main ones. I hope Steven Crowell's not going to do that.
But even just in terms of a big guy that is a focal point for a team's offense.
Matty Sissoko? That's a joke. That's a joke.
That was concerning because it felt like Illinois had zero answer for him. And he's great. He's really, really good. But, man, did Illinois struggle with him. And not even just when he was scoring. I think his presence on the court, Illinois was trying to send help to him when Coleman was on him one-on-one. And, I thought that's where FAU created a lot of their shots when he was in the game. And the plus-minus numbers reflected that FAU was quite a bit better when he was in the game. So him specifically is a little bit concerning. I don't think really I'm all that concerned. I think FAU's great offensively. I think they made some shots in the second half. It seemed like, man, they had some timely shots there when Damask was going on his tear and Terrence was going on his tear. FAU would come down and knock a 3 down and keep themselves in the game. And I don't know. I just think that's a matter of FAU is a really, really good offensive team. They had a mismatch that they exploited on the Illinois end. And the biggest takeaway for me, honestly, is more positive, because I think it proved to me that this Illinois team can win a different style game. Like last year, there was no way they win a game with this type of pace and style to it, where you have to go win a shootout. And you mentioned that in the first segment. Like, there's no way. There's just no way they win a game of this style last season. And I think this year we know that they're going to be able to win a more ugly game where they're going to have to rely on their defense, because I think we know that this is a really good defensive team, a physical team. But I did not know if this team was capable of putting 98 on a team and winning a game like that, and they did it. And I'm not saying that that's going to happen all the time. Maybe they won't even reach 98 again against a high major team. But you got two guys that can go get you a bucket. You got just a lineup in general that, especially for a team like FAU, like I thought that was a great matchup for Illinois' lineup, because you saw it. Like you set Domask a screen, you get a smaller guard switched onto him, he can exploit that all day. Nobody on that roster could stay in front of Terrence Shannon. They just didn't have a guy who could be physical with him and match him at all. Not that most teams are. But just the fact that Illinois just kept having an answer offensively, and they went on big scoring runs where they just 7-8 possessions in a row, the ball was going in the basket. Last year's team wasn't doing that. Maybe the UCLA game is the only one that comes to mind, and maybe the second half of Northwestern is one that comes to mind, where Terrence went nuclear and they came back and put up 50 in that half or whatever they did. But, man, I actually am encouraged by it. I'm not concerned defensively. I think this is still a great defensive team. If anything, I'm very encouraged by the fact that, hey, you went toe-to-toe with one of the best offensive teams in the country, and you were the better team offensively and won a shootout of a game in the 90s. I love that, and I think that that's a great sign for this team. And to have two guys that can just go carry you on the offensive end, that's how you mask a point guard. A lack of a point guard is you have two guys who can create shots for themselves and just put the team on their back on the offensive end, which happened.
For sure, yeah. Domask being able to find that spot, or just that new point of attack for him to be able to hunt out those back down opportunities, those mid post opportunities, it just adds another layer to Illinois' offense. And I feel like it's a more efficient route than, not to continue to try to point at Matthew Meyer, but Matthew Meyer was either going to make threes in a game or he wasn't going to make threes. I feel like with Domask, it gives you just a different ability to attack people. And where we've seen some teams, and we've talked about it, whether it's this year or even last year when Illinois was playing their switch everything defense, and teams were hunting out matchups to then post up like point guards and whatnot. Illinois now can kind of exploit weaknesses and put certain guys in screening actions, which they did against Rutgers, where they weren't actually using their 5-man to come out. They weren't using whether Coleman or Dane to set the screen to then have Cliff shade off Shannon's drive. They were using like Goody or some different pieces then to have Shannon understand. If you want to switch this, good luck using that guy on Terrence Shannon. And then also you can set up some actions to get Domask against smaller guards, and then it can be either something they dial up, or it can be just kind of a feel thing that Marcus Domask is able to go through. So I think I also like that, like, there are nights where, like, it's a one-game sample size, so obviously there are off games for certain teams, and you can catch somebody on off night and you beat them. And not to say that it takes away from you winning, but I like that Illinois won when FAU still played pretty well.
Yeah.
Like, FAU still played pretty well as a team and still hung a big number offensively. You didn't feel like, hey, FAU goes 2 for 27 from 3, and I know that's an exaggerated number, and you beat them, and they miss wide open threes that they normally make, and you're like, okay, yeah, they won, but it felt like FAU really had an off night. FAU played pretty well for the most part, and some areas like Elijah Martin not going off was Illinois dictated. And also they're, especially in that first half, like you were talking about, they were struggling to finish around the rim. Like, their shots at the rim at one point, I think they were like 6 for 14 or 15 at one point. Illinois' size was bothering them. They were traveling at times where they were trying to like pump fake, and then they shuffled and whatnot. So that size was affecting them. Golden was the one answer that is obviously glaring in that sense. Like Coleman couldn't stop him. Illinois, whoever was on him, Dane. Number one, Golden was hitting some face-up jumpers that I didn't necessarily expect him to make.
Yep.
But you could tell he was also a more polished back-to-the-basket guy than Amori was. I thought some of Amori's struggles against Illinois was self-inflicted. Like, he just badly missed some hook shots, and that's not really his game. But, yeah, I think Edey will be obviously – I mean, he's going to be a problem for everybody. I think Illinois will double him more than – they tried to double Golden once, at least one that came to mind, and he kicked it to John L. Davis for a three. And because FAU shoots it as well as they do, and because their guard plays as good as it is, it's hard to make that decision whether you want to double Golden or not. But, yeah, when I watched FAU leading up to that game, I loved John L. Davis. He's really, really good. Golden's been playing great. Elijah Martin had been playing well before that. I agree that I think FAU is just that good offensively. Fortunately, they have some shortcomings defensively because of their lack of size, and Illinois obviously was able to exploit that.
Yeah, I will say it was very helpful to Illinois that Vlad Golden picked up a couple really dumb, cheap fouls and was in foul trouble and played 18 minutes. If he plays 28 minutes, FAU may win this game. I mean, that's how much of a matchup issue is. I'm not saying they would have for sure, but he was impactful when he was on the court. So if there's one thing that I would want to take away, it's that, man, Golden was a problem for you, and we kind of knew that coming in, and we kind of knew that might be something that teams can exploit against just the way this Illinois roster is made up. But yeah, and the other point you mentioned that I thought was interesting was, FAU got called for like 7 or 8 travels. It was unbelievable. Mm-hmm. And I think part of that was just because, man, they had never seen the length and the physicality of Illinois, and they took an extra hop, and they just weren't in rhythm on some of their drives. And so I think, I'm not concerned about the 89-point output. Obviously, it helps that you won the game. Like, if you lose 89-84, then maybe there's more panic about the defense. Like, how do you give up 89? I thought we were supposed to be great defensively. But I didn't really notice anything that was uncharacteristic of this team. I just thought it was more Florida Atlantic was executing well, and there was one matchup that they exploited, particularly with a big man who went for 23 in 18 minutes on you. I don't know. I think I still expect, and especially heading into Saturday, like, I still expect that this game on Saturday is going to be a game in the 60s, and this is going to be a game where you're winning it with your defense. There's going to be plenty of games where you are going to hold teams down, and that's how you win. But I just thought it was great that Illinois was able to win a game where, like you said, FAU played well. They were really good on the offensive end, and you beat them. And so that's something I don't think last year's team does. I thought it was really encouraging to see that from this team, because I think that was the biggest question mark coming into the season, and even coming off Marquette, and all the talking points were all about, is this team going to be good enough on offense? Is this the same offense we saw last season? How much is lack of a point guard? Well, hey, the last 2 games, nobody has talked about Illinois not having a point guard, because they've looked really, really connected and have put up great offensive performances. I'm not saying that's never going to come up again, but you're starting to see the formula for them of overcoming that and putting together a team capable enough offensively to be really, really good.
Yeah, it looked like a team that offensively has really used the time off well, and it actually clicked there at Rutgers. And the ball movement, like you said, is definitely been something that has progressed since then. We got some text pouring in on the U of I Atlantic Link text line. You want to catch one more break before this hour's up, or do you want to take it all the way?
Let's do one quick one real quick.
Yep, let's catch a break. If you got any thoughts, questions, Illini basketball, 217-359-2255 on the U of I Illini Link text line. We'll get to those on the other side of this break. This is The Drive.
You moved into your new home using 2 men and a truck. The garage was clean. Then,
I love the new recliner. What are we going to do with this old one?
Put it in the garage for now.
Over time, this cycle continued.
Garage for now. Put it in the garage for now. Put it in the garage for now. Put it in the garage for now.
It happens. You got junk. Call 2 Men and a Truck to get rid of all your junk. Residential or commercial, 2 Men and a Truck has a solution for your junk removal. Contact them at 2menchampagne.com.
2 Men and a Truck.
I'm Justin Ike, co-owner of Fred's Plumbing, Heating, Air Conditioning, Electric, and Underground.
So, Justin, tell me what you see as typical when it comes to sewer repair. Give me a scenario.
your sewer's backed up and somebody comes along and says, you need this repair for X amount of dollars, here's my price, and you don't think to go looking for another company or a second opinion because you don't feel like you have time.
So is it possible that you might get charged a little more because it's kind of a desperate moment? Do some companies do that?
Oh, absolutely they will. They know you're in a pinch. Typically, if you call us, me or Will can be out there within an hour to look at that problem for you. Whether you call me first or you call me second, make sure you give me a call.
Anything else, Justin?
You can always trust Fred's.
Great to know. Thank you. That's Justin Ike, the co-owner of Fred's Plumbing, Heating and Air Conditioning, Electric, and Underground. If you want more information about this great 45-year family-owned company, just go to fredscu.com. That's fredscu.com.
Crossroads Contractor Supply specializes in the delivery of tools and supplies within a 150-mile radius of Champaign-Urbana. Reliable, timely, and with reasonable prices, Crossroads Contractor Supply knows what equipment and tools are needed for your job. Their slogan, we have it when you need it. Get the job done right with proper tools and equipment. Did something break? Construction materials as well as safety equipment, all available. Call 402-8123. Visit CrossroadsContractorSupplyIL.com.
All right, let's knock out a couple of these on the U of I Atlantic League text line before the hour is up. 630 says, I really don't care how Saturday goes. The goal should be a 2 or a 3 seed. The Big Ten championship is meaningless as well.
I wouldn't say that. I would not say that. I share your goals of 2 or 3 seed would be great, but I would love to. If you can knock this Purdue team off of Big Ten title, boy, that would be. You're getting a 2-3 seed if you do that. So why not add the Big Ten title? I'm not getting there yet. I still think Purdue's a clear favorite, but
Big Ten title would be really nice.
I mean,
and yes, like you said, it coincides with having the type of seed you want. I think on the note of getting that high of a seed, especially we're talking a 2 or 3 seed, this game on Saturday could be pretty huge. The Rutgers, there's still a lot of games left in this season, but Rutgers, after losing to you at home, then got blown out on the road at Wake Forest. They've already dropped to in the 90s of the net. There's probably a really good chance that's not going to be a quad 1 win, winning at the rack. Now, we'll see how the rest of this thing goes, but if you want to talk about stacking quad 1 wins and having a resume to be that high of a seed, I'm not saying you have to have this win on Saturday, but it'd be really, really nice because some other teams in the Big Ten, Maryland, Michigan State, not as strong as you would have thought going into the year. So you wonder how many real needle-moving opportunities outside of Purdue you're going to have. Big Def mentioned on the note of point guard, and he says that he loves Ty. Do you decide now to ramp up Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn and make up any minutes Ty loses at point with more minutes, having him dispel in the 3 to 4-ish area based on the matchup? As to say, would you move Ty to the 3 or 4 and spot minutes and let Dre play any point guard?
If he shows that he's ready, I don't think and he hasn't really got an opportunity to do that very much in these high major games, but I think there's a reason for that. I don't think Brad has much trust in Dre as it is right now. I still, and we talked about it last week, I just still think that there's going to be a time this year where he's going to be important. I don't want him to get buried. I don't want to not see him and have him get a bunch of DNPs. I would like to see Dre, but I feel like I don't know if he's necessarily going to fix anything that Ty Rodgers is lacking at point guard when it comes offensively. Obviously, he's a more dynamic scorer than Ty, but when it comes to playmaking and bringing the ball up the court, I don't know if you're going to see a big difference there. I also think I actually have started to buy in on this lineup with Ty at point guard for the defensive ability of it, and I love how much length that the starting lineup especially gives you, and I love the way Ty is playing on the defensive end, defending opposing point guard so far. I wouldn't really change much, but I do think that Dre at some point this year is going to be an important piece. I don't think that this is going to be a situation where he basically redshirts the year, not technically, but he barely makes any impact. I have that feeling that there's going to come a time where he kind of just gains more trust, or he has a great week of practice at some point and Brad plays him. He plays great, and I still think that there's an opportunity for him at some point.
I agree with that, yeah. In terms of especially the energy and the scoring punch off the bench, I think there will be times during especially Big Ten play where he can come off the bench and he'll have a little bit more. Now, you got to get him some minutes in games to get that experience for him to really grow. I don't know that – I wouldn't say that Saturday is going to be probably an opportunity to play him a whole lot, and right. I don't blame Brad for not playing him very much, or he didn't play him at all against Rutgers. You know, that press probably wasn't going to be the right situation to put the ball in his hands. I think they still wonder, is he ready to play like on the ball this year as far as decision-making and just seeing the floor and getting on into offense. They do trust that he can go get you one at times, and defensively he's going to play with good energy. Freshmen still have a lot to learn in terms of assignments and everything. But, yeah, similar to your answer, I'm not writing him off this year. I think there are going to be games that he can help you, and I think his growth is really important to add another level to Illinois in terms of a ceiling, and just having that guy off the bench, knowing his talent. But in terms of point guard, I wouldn't really expect it out of Dre this year. I think that based on Nico's recovery, that's a guy that might get an opportunity there before Dre. But even then, his injury, and then also he's going to have to perform against some better competition before we know a whole lot about that. We'll get some of your other questions on the other side of this break. Stick with us. This is The Drive.
You're listening to WSJK ESPN 93.5 Tuscola, Champaign-Urbana, your home for the St. Louis Cardinals.
You have money laying all around your house. You just don't know it. And no, I don't mean selling your great-grandma's good china. I mean all the old metal items you don't want to use or get rid of. Don't pay someone to haul it away. Bring it into Max Twin City Recycling and get paid to have it taken off your hands. They love new customers and are more than willing to walk you through their process step by step. Come check them out at 2808 North Lincoln Avenue in Urbana.
Starting it over is what we do at Max Twin City Recycling.
By now, you've all heard the expression, when you turn the key and the car won't run, call 367-9481 for PDR Automotive. They are what's best for your truck or car. They are PDR. But who are they? They, the PDR staff, understand that a name is only as good as the people that represent it. The PDR staff has more than 335 years of combined automotive experience. Several employees now on staff for more than 25 years. PDR, more than just a name. Family owned and operated, now celebrating over 50 years in business.
Reach your savings goals. Busey Bank CD specials can help. Watch your money grow with competitive rates and offers. Visit Busey.com/CD rates. Visit your local service center or call 1-800-67-BUSEY today. Busey Bank, building business, growing wealth since 1868.
Welcome to Dick Van Dyke Appliance World.
Hi, I'm looking for a refrigerator.
When you buy from us, you get the whole store.
Oh, yeah, well, I just need a refrigerator. Don't need the whole store.
But you get it, the whole store.
My kitchen is only about this big.
You get me.
Hello.
All those delivery, installation, and service technicians in back.
Wow, all those people?
The Dick Van Dyke 5-10-year protection plan, which means in the unlikely event something goes wrong in the first 5 years, your repair cost is nothing.
Nothing?
10 years parts coverage on the major components.
Looks like I'm getting more than a refrigerator today. How much does this whole store cost?
Nothing.
Come on.
For real. We guarantee to beat any competitor's deal, all that other stuff we talked about, like our service tax.
And your 5-10-year protection plan?
All included.
I'm Dennis Freakin, chairman of Dick Van Dyke Appliance World. And when we say you get the whole store, we mean the whole store. Wow!
Dick Van Dyke Appliance World. When you buy from us, you get the whole store.
When it comes to finding a reliable vehicle, look no further than Sarah Champagne, your trusted automotive destination. They carry a lineup of top brands including Honda, BMW, Subaru, GMC, and Buick. And they're not just about cars, they're about people. Their team is dedicated to providing you with trustworthy service and dependable vehicles that fit your lifestyle. Experience the difference at Sarah Champagne. Visit Sarah, S-E-R-R-A, champagne.com.
You've changed thousands of diapers, cut hundreds of crusts, played hours of peekaboo and duck, duck, goose.
because you do anything for your kids. That's why it's important to protect them with life insurance from State Farm. The Brian Hansen State Farm Agency will make it easy and affordable to help protect your family no matter what the future holds. Because for the people you do anything for, life insurance could mean everything. Call me, State Farm Agent Brian Hansen in Champaign-Urbana today. For details, visit brianismyguy.com. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Hello again, everyone. Let's check weather for East Central Illinois. Champaign-Urbana this Saturday. Nice spell of early December weather to continue on right in through at least the start of the weekend. And even there, next weather system expected to bring some additional drought relief. More rain in the forecast. There is a shift back into some chillier weather, more seasonal temperatures for next week. In the meantime, turning windy and milder with a mostly sunny Thursday. 54 this afternoon. The southwest to southwind and the increase at 15 to 25 and gusty. Some scattered clouds. Breezy tonight, 43. That's close to an average high this time of the year. Tomorrow, windy and seasonably mild, partly sunny. Could be a lone shower to our southwest late in the day, and high at about 57, even 60 south of Champaign County. Breezy, mild in the lower 50s, and showers overspread the area tomorrow night, and some showery weather for the day on Saturday, especially the morning hours, up to 56 there. 40s in the afternoon. Could be a snow shower Sunday, nothing Monday, couple of snowflakes Tuesday and Wednesday. Temperatures will settle back close to 40 for daytime highs. For Stevie J Broadcasting, I'm Meteorologist Greg Soldier.
It is The Drive with Sam Piper, ESPN Radio 93.5. Derek Piper, Kyle Tosk. Let's get to a couple more of your questions on the U of I Illini Link text line regarding Illini basketball. Do want to at some point switch gears a little bit and go the Big Ten picture. There have been a handful of conference games already, obviously. I want to get the current snapshot of the league standings and just thoughts around the Big Ten at this point. Both positive, like Wisconsin. Hey, Indiana's off to a 2-0 start. And the negative, Maryland, gross.
Wow.
They actually won last night in overtime, though.
Against Penn State.
Against Penn State. They're really bad. Michigan, oh boy. Yeah, them being potentially the second or third best team in the Big Ten. For those that were offering that aggressive take, that's gone by the wayside.
It's funny because they look good. I never said that, but I thought that they. No, I know you're not. I'm just saying I thought that they actually, based on the first week and a half of the year, like, hey, maybe this Michigan team will be a tournament team. Like they got a great point guard. No, they're really bad. And the funny thing about them is, like, Juwan Howard isn't technically coaching right now. He still isn't back as a head coach. But, boy, if they miss the tournament again and, like, go to the NIT, maybe this team doesn't look like they might even make the NIT at this point. But point being, if they miss the postseason for another year, how is he back in Ann Arbor? There's no way, right?
There's already a lot of buzz, regardless of what the result is, that he's probably going to move on. Is his son still there, or is he finally gone? I know that
his
Jets,
other son,
Jets
Jace, is
gone.
Still there, I think.
Okay. Jace has one more year.
He doesn't. Does he even play? I don't even know if he does. If he does, it's like as the ninth man or something.
Yeah, there's been whispers for a while, but especially this past offseason that, hey, don't be surprised if this is the last year of Juwan in Ann Arbor. We'll have to see how that thing plays out, but especially if it goes off the rails and they're terrible, which Ken Pom right now has them projected at 14-17, then it might not even be his choice. Who knows? They might say we're good before he even gets the word in. But, yeah, before we fully go that direction, let's get to a couple more on here. I do want to – Wade texted in earlier about Braden Smith. There was watch out for the fake accounts on Twitter. There was a fake Rothstein account that was tweeting about a Hunter Dickinson suspension and also a leave of absence for Braden Smith, none of which are true. So I know that Hunter got into a little bit of a spat in their last game, right?
He got a flagrant foul or something. Just kind of your average Hunter Dickinson play.
Yeah, so probably nothing to see there too much, but no word of that from a actual reporter. Same goes for Braden Smith as well, as far as I understand it. So look out for those. And I've been duped by one of those in the past. They're hard to tell. If the check mark is one way to look, and then also.
But now with Elon's version of Twitter, now the check mark is like a lot of really credible reporters don't have the check mark because they don't want to pay $8 a month. So
I don't have the check mark.
So I mean, it's
I'm not saying that I'm a really credible reporter.
Is someone going to dupe you now, or?
Yeah, who knows? They could.
Terrence Shannon Jr. got injured in practice. Derek Piper, but the I is actually an L. Look out. Let's not do that.
Someone did that on the. So when Illinois went to Italy, Kofi and Andres Feliz weren't able to fly over. Their passports or visas didn't come through, and so that was a real story. But someone made a fake account of me and tweeted out that Brad Underwood's in custody because he went off on the immigration or whatever people, and so he's in airport jail, and I don't know what else they added, but that kind of blew up a little bit. And I remember I saw Brad in Italy, and he like walked up to me and he's like, I was going to kill you at one point, because he thought I was just like making a joke, but it was actually obviously not me tweeting that. So,
oh my goodness,
that did happen. Wade on the U of I Atlanta League text line: if Ty stays 4 years, how much offensive improvement do you see, or is he what he is?
I think he can improve, especially if he is in a role where he can be a little more aggressive, especially when it comes to attacking the rim. I feel like on this team, it's pretty clear that they're not asking almost anything of him when it comes to scoring. And I also think a full season, not to say I would imagine that Illinois is going to look to fill the point guard role this offseason one way or another, but a year of being a primary ball handler for this team, I think he'll improve on that front. But I also think we've seen the flashes of him on offense. Like he can be really physical. He can get to the basket. But we're not really seeing that on this team because you got a bunch of other guys who are just higher on the pecking order in terms of offense on this team. I think with the right team where he's maybe asked to do a little more, I think he could definitely show improvement. Is that fair?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think that you definitely want to see him do a better job. Like the Rutgers game was a good example of him against backcourt pressure, of taking care of the ball in a more effective manner. And then really offensively, the best thing he's shown is, in terms of scoring, is offensive rebounding and some baseline cutting.
Yeah.
So I think late in the year, though, late last year, in some opportunities on the ball, he was able to play in some pick and roll and attack gaps and get to the basket. And I don't feel like he's been as aggressive in that. Illinois also isn't running a lot of stuff through him. So I don't know if it's him just finding his spots and picking his spots to go to the basket and be able to finish. I know that there is the downside of him getting fouled and going to the free throw line. I do think he's a slightly improved. Is he slightly improved free throw shooter this year? It's a low volume, right?
Is he taking like 4?
Yeah, he's taken 8 and he's made 4.
Hey,
so he's at 50%, where last year he was at 38%. So a little bit of an improvement, but yeah, shooting wise, can he get a little better? Yeah, I think he can. We've seen guys that, Chester Frazier did not shoot well at all his first handful of years, and then by his senior season, he was like a 30-plus three-point shooter. Now, we haven't seen Ty make any threes, so like even if he was...
Over under 0.5 three-pointers made before Ty Rodgers graduates college.
I'll say you make 1 plus. I'm not going to land on 1. If he plays 4 years at Illinois, I think there'll be a point in time where he makes a 3. Do you say no?
I bet you he'll end his career with 1, and it'll be like a late shot clock where he just makes it.
Yeah,
that's about it.
Bank 1 in, or is it going to be pure? Is it going to be pure? Go down?
It'll either rim in or it'll bank in. I don't know if it's going to be a swish, but I feel it's just he's so far away from any type of shooter. But I don't think, again, he doesn't. I don't think he needs that to be an effective player. It definitely caps his offensive ceiling a ton. But I do think, man, he's skilled offensively around the basket, and he can obviously use his size to get inside and exploit some matchups. It's just that's not really what this team is asking of him. But I think that he, at some point, can be a guy who maybe averages close to double digits a game without even making a three. Like by his senior year with the right team, I don't know. Maybe he is always just going to kind of be a defensive specialist, but I don't know.
Yeah, I do think going to the basket is something he can continue to find his spots doing and just becoming more efficient with it. And then if his free throw percentage can get a little bit better than 50%, it's not entirely out of the question that his ability to reach double figures at some point. But I do think he is a ways away still offensively. I wonder about the approach with the point guard. I would imagine too that you'd want to go into the portal and get one. Yeah, I mean there's just a big difference there between a bona fide real point guard and having to make do without one. But
are we going to go through round 2 of the point guard offseason? Although they're not just going to need a point guard this offseason.
It's true.
They're going to need quite
more.
A bit.
Yeah.
But
hopefully the sweepstakes, whatever one they're in, they're going to get who they want, or they're in it for a handful of guys and can get one instead of none. But yeah, and that's another thing. Like at one point last year, it's definitely the offseason. He's coming off. Look, Ty is a good player. He's on the Team USA for a reason, and I think he's a good passer, at least as far as what I saw as a prospect and some stuff late last year. I think there's some of that can be unlocked a little bit more. Now it's harder when teams just aren't willing to be afraid of you as a shooter, and they play everything in drop, and they go under every screen, and they take away every opportunity to try to they try to get in your passing lanes. But people tried to talk at one point about him having like NBA, early entry NBA type stuff, and yeah, he's a good athlete, yeah, he's tough, he can rebound. I don't know how that's ever gonna. I don't want to say ever, but he's got a long way to go offensively for that to even be a real possibility.
Can you, in today's NBA, can you play in the NBA as a guard/wing who can't even think about putting a three up? I mean,
I don't think so.
I don't see that.
I don't think so. And yeah, the progression so far is coming along slowly in terms of his jump shot, at least as far as we can tell. Ryan has an interesting question. Would you trade Ray J for Marcus Damask?
I'm assuming he doesn't mean that this would have, like, Illinois' pursuit of Ray J was well after Damask committed, right? So it wasn't like you had to, like, going back, they would have had to make this swap.
No,
but it's just a hypothetical.
Yes. Which I think hypothetical, like, ability to trade players in college basketball would be fun.
It would be fun. I think I would trade. And it's I've just loved watching Damask. He's been a phenomenal addition. But man, Ray J. Dennis as a point guard, I think he would make this a team just paired alongside Terrence, and I think
you're so much more built to fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
At forward, like Ty being now a forward.
Yep.
You have
Ty slides into where Damask is now.
Quincy obviously can play there. Luke can play there. I think Damask has been great, especially of recent. But yeah, Ray J, what he's doing at Baylor as an on-ball guy that can shoot it. The only knock on him so far is his turnover numbers early in the season have been high, but he shot like 40% from three and is doing some very good things for Baylor. So
Terrence Shannon's turnover numbers have been high so far, but is he playing poorly? No.
No. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really, really good point. There was one more that I wanted to get to. Where was it? It was – oh, yeah, Scott mentions I've asked for opinions, like updated thoughts and opinions on Illinois. He says, everyone sees that this is a tournament team, but to say top 10 in the country, not a chance yet. Did you guys forget they lost a home game a couple of weeks ago? Remember last year, everyone, it feels the same. I get it. We were probably saying similar things or the exact same thing. It's not been too long. I don't have too crazy a dad brain right now, or I don't remember that far back. But last year, we were pretty high coming off of the Jimmy V Classic of what Illinois basketball was going to do last year. Having beaten UCLA, having beaten Texas, having gone to the wire with Virginia. Like, there were a lot of even you had just lost to Maryland right before beating Texas. So you had that loss as well, but you were really, really excited. Like, hey, Illinois is making a statement that I thought they were ahead of the curve because this was a new collection of guys that was probably going to take their lumps early, especially with a tough schedule, that then later in the year it would really click. And they were to have those marquee wins early. I was really high on what that Illinois team was going to ultimately be. You didn't see them take steps from there. Obviously, it went off the rails shortly after that win against Texas, where they weren't playing well. They get blasted by Missouri. They lose at Northwestern, and there's a lot. And then Sky Clark leaves the team. So we can't say with complete certainty that this Illinois team will continue to get better. We have to see that play out. I think. Let me ask you this and frame it this way then, Kyle. For Illinois to not go stagnant after what we saw just recently against FAU, for them to build on this, what does that have to look like in your opinion to make sure it's not a peak too early like last year's team?
I mean, I feel like they need to just continue to stick with what's working for them right now. When I look back at last year, I think it just feels a lot different to me. I get that there's a lot of parallels, but you come off the Texas and UCLA wins. Those two games, you were fortunate to win both of them. I mean, you play well enough to win them, and it's not like the other teams handed you the game or anything, but you came back from a huge deficit against UCLA and had a performance from Terrence Shannon that felt really unsustainable. Like his performances this year maybe aren't going to continue all season, but it feels a lot more sustainable for him. And then the Texas game, they blow a lead in like the last 8 minutes of the game, and they foul you 50 feet from the rim to even send it to overtime. And it felt like it just feels like Illinois is playing a more complete brand of basketball right now. I also think like you beat Texas last year, you were still relying on two freshman guards, and you didn't have this experience. It felt like the team. There were still a lot of questions about the fit of the roster. This team, I think you can tell, fits together a lot better. I don't think Marcus Damask is going to change who he is at all. I don't think we're going to see a lot of these guys, tail off like some of the guys did last year and just have some of the inconsistencies that guys did. And it feels like this locker room, too, like you remember that Texas game, then you come home against Penn State like 3 days later on a Saturday. Right. And you fall completely flat. And that's after that game was the fart noise game for Brad Underwood in post game.
It's true.
And it's like at that point it was immediate, like, okay, we got some issues now. Like that Texas one's gone. There's some problems coming off this game. Leads me to the point that I think Saturday will tell us a little bit here. Like, I don't think there's any shame in losing a competitive game on the road to Tennessee. If they lose that game Saturday, I don't think it changes much as long as, they go in and compete. If they're completely flat and they get ran out of the gym by Tennessee, then, okay, now we can start to talk about the parallels. I just think that this team's going to be a lot more steady. Even the Marquette game, they competed in that game the whole way. They were in that game the whole time. It wasn't a flat performance where you got a bunch of uncharacteristic performances from guys and whatnot. There were some issues in that game, but I just think this team needs to lean into who they are, and they've got an alpha in Terrence Shannon, who I think if he keeps up the consistency more so than he did last year heading into the Big Ten stretch, that'll be huge. And you just lean into being a really good defensive team, exploiting the mismatches that you get with your bigger wings like Damask and Rogers and Guerrier and whatnot. And I just think that there feels like a lot more sustainability to this group, and it just feels like a different vibe, both in the locker room. I know someone on the text line, Kyler, said the issue in the locker room and overall feel the team felt so different even after the Texas win. I kind of feel that. I mean, that wasn't a point where we were talking about that until, Penn State and Missouri. That's when we really started having those things started cropping up. But it just feels like a more connected and team that's built way better. So I don't know. I don't know if that totally answered your question.
Well,
but
it's hard to totally answer it this time. We don't know.
I just think the way they're playing right now, and it's easier said than done, obviously, and you probably could have said the same last year, but the brand of basketball they're playing right now is what they need to continue to do on a consistent basis, and I think they'll be a really, really good team. And I think that this team is built to have more of that consistency and gel together for longer stretches than last year's team did. Not have the peaks and valleys that last year's team did with your Matthew Myers and your freshmen and all that.
Yeah, no, I agree with all of that. And I think that as far as building off of it, I think it's trying to get Coleman back offensively to a point. And to say back, I know some people are going to say, well, where was he before? He has been a guy that's been inconsistent throughout his career, and that's a very fair point. But to try to get him to a level of being able to be more confident and more understanding of taking those catch and shoot threes. And yes, there are going to be nights where he doesn't make them, and do you want him to keep shooting them? No, but to try to really tap into that pick and pop dynamic, that's another level this team can gain offensively if he does click into that. Even just on even he makes it at a decent rate. Even if he's just an average, like a 33 to 35% 3-point shooter from here on, that would be a huge asset to have. As a 5-man, you actually got to think about going out and guarding, and then to take away some of the mistakes that he makes off the dribble. And speaking off the dribble, is Dane ever going to stop trying to dribble too? I think that's another thing that can make Illinois more solid. On the positive side, Justin Harmon building on what he's done the last couple of games, like his confidence off the bench and to be thrown out there in that game against FAU and to hit some big corner threes. That was big. Those were huge plays, and I think it was just a huge. I don't know. It wasn't an eye opener, but it was very encouraging the way that Marcus Domask and Justin Harmon, guys that I respect the leagues they came from, the teams they came from. Like Utah Valley had a really good year last year. They went on a little run in the NIT for a reason, and then the Valley's a good league. Marcus obviously played against some good guys, Drake, Bradley, there's some good teams in the Valley, but for them to then go to Madison Square Garden and play in that type of a game, and those guys didn't bat an eye, those guys looked like they belonged and were really impactful for Illinois, that was super encouraging. So, yeah, and not to go like terribly long-winded on why I think this year could be different versus last year, but I don't think we're going to have a schematic crisis in the middle of the year. I don't think Illinois needs to scrap their defense.
Great point.
In the middle of the year, I think offensively they're figuring some things out. Yes, prior to Rutgers, we would have said, hey, they got some real things to work on, and I think that's something that they're going to have to continue to evolve offensively, add more wrinkles to it, add some different layers to when teams are able to or try as much as they can to take away Terrence Shannon, or they understand, okay, Marcus Domask is going to try to post us up and do this to us. What can we do to counter that? But I love the roles that Justin Harmon's established and growing into, that Quincy Guerrier's established and growing into, that Luke Goody's established. And those are all older guys. This is an older team and a team that's been around the block more, and that starts with their leader. Their leader is Terrence Shannon, who actually has experience of being a leader and an alpha this year as opposed to last year. So I'm not stamping guaranteed, I'm not putting it on the box, guaranteed Sweet 16 and your money back. I'm not giving your money back. I'm not saying that's 100% sure of anything, but I do think that, like you said, this team can be more steady. And I do look, context matters. And in hindsight, we now know what happened to last year's team. We know some of the egos that were at play and some of the things that spilled out that maybe we didn't even know all of it at this time last year. A lot of it we didn't know. Not to say I didn't know that, Sky Clark came in having bounced around a lot and there was a lot of wonder, hey, if things don't go well for him, how's he going to handle that? Or Matthew Maya here, quote unquote, he's a different cat and all this stuff. And then, obviously we saw how things happened. But again, not to go too long on it, but I think this team will be more steady. Yes, I agree with you that Saturday is going to give us a good indication. I think Tennessee is going to be ready to pop you in the mouth. That's going to be a hungry Tennessee team, a hungry crowd, a squad that had high hopes coming into this year and have lost their last 3 high major games and give up 61 in the first half to UNC. I think, especially with what Tennessee is going to try to do to you defensively, it could be hard to score. Now, Illinois, fortunately, is good defensively in their own right. I could totally see it being a rock fight game, but it will trust your confidence, but also your toughness and your ability to kind of deal with success. So I think that will show us a lot, but I like the vibes around this team right now. I think that it's very encouraging how they showed on Tuesday also. And you and I, Kyle, pushed back on some people trying to maybe make too much of a loss at home to Marquette. I think I'm kind of in the middle. We're in the middle there, and like, all right, you played pretty decent. Marquette's really good. Let's not celebrate that you were in a close game. That's not where Illinois is. But
I still feel that way.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we should. But that, you know, you can still say, hey, Illinois, if they would have closed the game differently, or just, you know, just to say it, you know, plainly, they played decent in that game against a very good team. And then I'm still going to count to an extent the Kansas game.
Yes.
You led for 36 of the 40 minutes against a good Kansas team, not number one in the country. Good, we've learned some of that, but
they beat UConn the other night.
Did.
I mean, they're good. They're good. Yeah, they're top 10 in the country.
So I think there's enough of a sample size to say Illinois is pretty darn good in their own right. I trust them more than last year's team, based on obviously what we found out. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, and on the Marquette game, like, I think I still 100% agree that no one should be calling that a good loss, or no one should be happy or you know, think that that's completely acceptable. Oh, Marquette's great, so it's totally fine that we lost at home. I disagree with that.
Wisconsin just beat them at home.
Because Wisconsin just beat them at home, and I think you're at a point with your program where you welcome in a marquee team to your home building, you expect and should win that basketball game. But at the same time, when I'm evaluating what this team is, losing by 7 at home to that Marquette team isn't really, I'm not knocking them much for that. That's not really changing my opinion a ton on this team. That's kind of how I view that. And on the second part of Scott's statement, to kind of circle back to where he said, you know, this is not a top 10 team right now. I agree. I'm not willing to go there quite yet. I still think there's more to be proven. I'm not going to sit here and declare that this is a top 10 team in the country. I do think if you go into Tennessee and win a rock fight of a game on Saturday, I'd probably get there. I'm probably there. But at this point, I still think that there's more to be proven. And yeah, I still think you want to see all the things we just said play out and not have not have another situation where Terrence Shannon goes ice cold with his 3-point shot, and, you know, maybe some of your other role guys really are struggling again. There's still more to be proven there. I'm not willing to get that far. So I agree on that front, but I do think there's a much different feel to this year's team than last year's team, and I'm pretty confident in saying when it's all said and done, this team will be much better than last year's team was.
Good stuff. If you want to weigh in, you can. 217-359-2255 on the U of I Illini League text line. Let's zoom out, look at the Big Ten. Kyle's going to have to fill me in a little bit on some of the games that he saw when I was out covering the Rutgers game, and also
I'll be honest, I haven't watched a ton of Big Ten hoops here recently other than Illinois, but at least I have an idea.
Let's have a conversation. We haven't talked about the Northwestern-Purdue game.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about, we just briefly mentioned Wisconsin beating Marquette. Wisconsin then goes to East Lansing and beats Michigan State. There's some stuff here to catch up on. Indiana's 2-0 in the league. Were we wrong about them? Spoiler alert, no. But let's catch up on that when we return. This is The Drive.
Don't miss your chance to cheer on Fighting Illini basketball this season.
Deafening in here, 15,000, another sellout.
We need all of Illini Nation to help us defend State Farm Center.
And Illinois overcomes their largest deficit of the season.
Great seat locations are still available for you to see Illinois basketball live this season.
The Illini win it.
Get your tickets today at fightingillini.com.
The hammering, the sawing, the drilling, all the sounds of the workplace are music to our ears. You can be a part of construction projects large and small as a Carpenters Local 243 member. Learn to excel with apprentice and journeyman training. Members enjoy all the benefits this internationally recognized union has to offer. It's a life-changing decision. Join the Local 243 family tradition. Contact Carpenters Local 243 at 217-356-5463.
Carl works every day to improve the health of community members across the region, and it would not be possible without team members like Dwayne Linton, a nationally certified nurse in the emergency department at Carl Foundation Hospital.
I work with a team of people who really care about what they do and are very flexible and adaptive in rapidly changing critical situations, and I would trust any of them at any time.
If you're looking for an opportunity to serve your community like Dwayne in a supportive environment, visit carl.org/careers.
Jets is hiring. Call 217-352-9992 or stop into 1907 West Springfield Avenue near Round Barn in Champaign. Jets is open till 10 p.m. Fridays and Saturdays till midnight. Are you looking for a side hustle? Here's Josh from Jets talking about the benefits of doing deliveries.
When I was a delivery driver, it was amazing how much the actual amount of money I had just shot right up. You have money in your pocket every single day.
For details on joining the team, visit jetspizza.com.
Here's what somebody recently said at Pards in Urbana. I was there just a few minutes, and somebody came up and asked if I needed help. And they were incredible, helped me find the size of boot I needed, and then I bought a second pair too. Everything was friendly, everything was excellent. Visit Pards in Urbana, 206 North Maple, between Main and University in Urbana. It's Pards Western Shop since 1968. Or go online and visit pards.com, pards.com.
You moved into your new home using 2 men in a truck. The garage was clean. Then,
I love the new recliner. What are we going to do with this old one?
Put it in the garage for now.
over time, this cycle continued.
Garage for now. Put it in the garage for now. Put it in the garage for now. Put it in the garage for now.
It happens. You got junk. Call 2 Men in a Truck to get rid of all your junk. Residential or commercial, 2 Men in a Truck has a solution for your junk removal. Contact them at 2menchampagne.com.
2 Men in a Truck. I'm Justin Ike, co-owner of Fred's Plumbing, Heating, Air Conditioning, Electric, and Underground.
So, Justin, tell me what you see as typical when it comes to sewer repair. Give me a scenario.
Your sewer's backed up and somebody comes along and says, you need this repair for X amount of dollars. Here's my price. And you don't think to go looking for another company or a second opinion because you don't feel like you have time.
So is it possible that you might get charged a little more because it's kind of a desperate moment? Do some companies do that?
Oh, absolutely they will. They know you're in a pinch. Typically, if you call us, me or Will can be out there within an hour to look at that problem for you. Whether you call me first or you call me second, make sure you give me a call.
Anything else, Justin?
You can always trust Fred's.
Great to know. Thank you. That's Justin Ike, the co-owner of Fred's Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning, Electric, and Underground. If you want more information about this great 45-year family-owned company, just go to fredscu.com. That's fredscu.com.
When you're buying a battery, it's important to look beyond just the price and make sure you're buying a quality battery. So when you're buying one from the big box store, make sure you ask the question, what's the date on this battery? Is it dependable? Sometimes the big box stores have batteries that have been sitting on the shelf for years. Or you can just come to Interstate Batteries, outrageously dependable, and buy your battery from the people who only do batteries. Interstate Batteries at 2504 North Madison, Champaign. Way out there, but totally worth the drive. How much is dependable worth to you? Interstate Batteries open 6 days a week.
Back on the drive with Sam Piper, ESPN Radio 93.5. Let's dive into the Big Ten on the whole and get our thoughts as we're pretty much finished up. Are there any other conference games that need to be played? Or are we done until January?
There's some this weekend, I think, because I know Iowa and Michigan play. I think Nebraska and Michigan State play.
Still have some to go, for sure. Good call on that. Where to start? How about Wisconsin?
They're good.
How good?
Top 4 in the conference, pretty clearly.
Yeah. Kind of the traditional where Bo Ryan had them, where they've been even under Greg Gard a handful of times.
They're in a pretty similar boat to Illinois, I think, right now, in terms of, like, they're playing really well. They've picked up a couple very impressive wins in a row where they beat Marquette at home, who's really good, and then they went to Michigan State. That's a Michigan State team that is totally broken and awful right now, but they go on the road and dominate them. So it's kind of, mirror images of each other. Marquee win and then road win against a team that's probably bad, but you still dominated. And Wisconsin actually looks pretty darn good, I must say.
The Badgers, like you said, I thought Marquette was going to be able to go in there and be like, all right, some of these good vibes for Wisconsin will get ended. And Marquette had a little bit of revenge last year to try to seek out because they lost to the Badgers, I think, in overtime last year when they met. And but 75-64. Max Kleesmit went berserk, like 5 threes in the first half, and obviously was able to vault Wisconsin into a big win. They were able to contain Tyler Kolek enough, only had 11 points in that game. Oso Ighodaro had 5 points compared to Steven Krause 16 and 8. Like, what the heck? What the heck, Kyle? Did you see any of this game? Because admittedly, I was traveling. I didn't.
I saw a little bit of the second half, but I did. I wish I would have watched it closer. I didn't. But yeah, I mean, if Max Kleesmit is putting what did he have? You say
he hit like 5 threes in the first half, man.
I think he had 21 points in the first half, and if he's doing that, yeah, Wisconsin's going to be real good. Now I don't know if that's going to happen often, but there's just something too, like. They've got the continuity. They've got the experience. It's just, none of their individual pieces like blow you away. They don't have the alpha type on their team, but they have a group that's experienced, that fits well together. Certain guys are in roles that there's a lot of parallels there to even kind of some of the stuff we're talking about with Illinois, obviously minus the All-American. And so I think they're going to be a pretty steady, tough team to beat all year in the conference, and it's going to be one of those classic Wisconsin teams that you watch them play and you're like, is this team really like a team with Steven Crowl and Chucky Hepburn? Is this team going to finish third in the Big Ten? And what do you know, they win 14 conference games and are pretty darn good. I think that's kind of the path for this Wisconsin team. And yeah, Marquette, I don't know. That's Marquette, and Wisconsin's had Marquette's number forever. Yeah. Like, you almost think about Missouri having Illinois' number for a while, even though they've had worse teams. Like Wisconsin to Marquette here recently is kind of similar dynamic, but I don't know. Wisconsin has been pretty impressive to me.
Yeah, and there were a team in the offseason that I circled and said I think that they could be better than their projection. And actually, in recent years, I've been selling Wisconsin. I was wrong one time, the year they had Johnny Davis, and he was a All-American type. I was obviously wrong because they lost early in the NCAA tournament, but didn't think that they were going to be maybe even a tournament team, especially if a Big Ten title winner that season. But last year they underperformed and didn't like them coming into last year. This year I did like them and thought that they would be in the upper echelon of the Big Ten. Not to say that they would beat Purdue, and I definitely don't think they will for the league title. But they're going to be in that mix, top 3, top 4 of the league. And they're doing this without Connor Essegian doing a whole lot and that's a guy that would have surprised me. If you would have told me going into this season that, Connor Essegian is going to barely do anything in the early portion of this schedule, then I would probably back off it because I thought he could be one of the breakout players in the league. And I know he's dealing with a little bit of is it a back issue or something? But he's not playing a whole lot, and he hasn't done very much even in the games he's been in.
Yeah, he was hurt at the beginning of the season, barely played, and now I feel like he's healthy, but he's just like they started the year off with him not really in the rotation, and Greg Gard's like, well, we're not going to really adjust. We're just going to, you're falling out of favor here. I don't know.
AJ Store's been good. That was a nice addition for them. That's a piece that they haven't had in a while.
I will say, if there's ever a guy you circle and are like, he will be in the portal this offseason, it's Connor Essegian.
Okay. I like him. I liked him last year. I don't know what's all going into that in terms of this season.
There was some weird comments that Greg Gard made in a post-game earlier this year. I don't know if you ever saw that, but there was something where it was just so weird. It was almost – maybe it was even after that terrible loss they had to Providence, which is like their big blemish so far. And someone asked him, like, why'd Connor Essegian barely play? And Greg Gard was like, you should ask him that question. And it just brushed it off. And then there was, people on Twitter were like, what in the world is he talking about? So there's some weird dynamic there. And Connor Essegian, is he going to be your next Iowa shooter? Or
they're going to get him and Jaden Schutt?
Oh, boy. There's two names right there that you seem pretty likely that, hey, maybe they'll be available in the near future.
You'd have to think so. But, yeah, Wisconsin, early indications are pretty good for them. Crowell's been good. John Blackwell, freshman, has been able to, been a double double-figure scorer for them in like 5 out of 10 games or whatnot, 5 out of 9 games for them. So
he may be the leader for freshman of the year in the conference right now because
crazy?
All these high-profile freshmen that came in, they've all done nothing. I mean, it's just the way they've all done nothing. Michigan State's freshman, nothing.
Yeah.
Maryland's
Xavier
freshman.
Booker's not even playing, is he?
No, he's getting DNPs. Izzo, man. We got to get to them too, but
can't wait
Maryland's
to get to
freshman.
them.
Maryland's freshman, nothing. Ohio State had a big freshman. He's like their 8th man playing 10 minutes. Like so, and Illinois' freshmen aren't playing, and so it's just it's a down year for Big Ten freshmen.
Yep. 6 out of 9 games, John Blackwell, a freshman guard, has scored in double figures, and that's part of probably the reason beyond any like locker room stuff or doghouse with Greg Gard stuff, but him playing well has probably made it easy for Connor Essegian not to see the floor a whole lot. Big test for the Badgers coming up on Saturday. They're at Arizona.
Ooh, boy.
We'll see how that goes. If they hang tough on that one and pull it off, I mean, we were talking about a really, really good Wisconsin team, but Arizona's thought to be one of the elites in college basketball, so that will be a difficult one for them to muster. Let's go around. Let's just do it now. Michigan State not able to beat Wisconsin, a team that's already taken 4 losses. Now, 3 of those you're not going to maybe think too poorly of. I mean, losing by 13 on your home floor to Wisconsin, that's not great. You lose a neutral to Arizona. You lose a neutral to Duke. Obviously at home against James Madison in overtime they lost. But they look pretty rough. A team that was preseason top 10 in the country.
Top 5.
Top 5 in the country.
They
Thank
were
you.
4th in
Wow.
the country preseason.
And figured in a lot of people's minds, surefire number 2 team in the Big Ten, not to be the case.
They look horrendous. I mean, they look like a broken team. And I'm very interested to see if they get it figured out because I still think that there's a chance that they do. But, man, Tyson Walker's been awesome.
Yeah.
Everyone else has been terrible. I mean, that's basically the story of their team. Tyson Walker's been awesome. Everyone else has, gotten worse. They bring back the whole story with them, and it's your classic, all the teams that bring everyone back get way overvalued a lot in the preseason rankings. It always happens. But for them, that was the appeal, is they're bringing their core back from, a team that was in the Sweet 16, and they're adding freshmen, one of the best freshman classes in the country. Well, all those returners other than Walker have regressed, and the freshmen are not being played by Tom Izzo. So what does that equate to? Well, it's a team that is broken, and they're just not very good. Like, A.J. Hoggard looks awful this year. That makes no sense. Akins looks like he's
forgotten how to shoot.
He doesn't know how to play basketball anymore. I don't understand that. Boy, are they missing Joey Hauser, who I mentioned back in the preseason. Hey, you're losing a starter who was a really important part of your offense, but everyone's like, oh, they're bringing everyone back. No, they're not. They're losing a starter who was their leading rebounder and their best three-point shooter. That's not just a brush off. And then Tom Izzo is just so stubborn that he refuses to play a 5-star big man when Matty Sissoko is their starting center. Come on, man. I mean, come on. They look like broken right now. I don't know where they go.
I am very surprised. I'm not that surprised that they are not as good as people thought. I'm surprised that Jaden Akins isn't shooting it very well. I mean, he was like a 40% three-point shooter last year, if I remember correctly. Hoggard he got benched at one point earlier in this year, and I know he was back in the starting lineup against Wisconsin, but yeah, they were overvalued quite a bit. I mean, you look at their big man picture. I did think that Booker was going to factor in there decently. I wouldn't write off Izzo just being really mad at kind of his work ethic and whatnot, because there were some whispers around. I think he's even hinted at it at one point. He missed a shoot around or was late for a shoot around, and that's why he didn't play him in one game. But Booker had some of that buzz around him as a recruit, so I bet that he's probably frustrating Tom Izzo right now. I know there's been a big push by the fan base to see more of Jeremy Fears, maybe in relief of A.J. Hoggard. We'll see. But, yeah, I know Tyson Walker's carrying a huge weight on his shoulder and is not getting a lot of help. And I've never been a huge Malik Hall fan, especially in the context of, he's going to be a dude. He's going to be that next guy in line to step up and be a a veteran from Michigan State that's going to be one of their star players. He's not that guy, and he really hasn't. But in this last game, to tell you how lost they are, they started both Matty Sissoko and Carson Cooper in their front court. Like,
that's
both
what
of
are we
those guys
doing here?
stink. Like,
not only do they both stink, but they're both true centers,
They're centers.
who
They
can't
started two
play next to
centers.
each other at all.
maybe Tom was like, "Hey, I'm seeing what Indiana's doing, and they're undefeated in the league. Let's start our two centers and see how that works."
I would love to see a 2-on-2 between Khalil Ware and Malik Renew and Carson Cooper and Matty Sissoko.
Oh my God!
It might be 21-0 final.
Oh, it would be. It would be. I am taking enjoyment out of the fact that I think that the win, it really boiled down to Michigan State beating Marquette last year in the tournament. Now, to their credit too, like, they took Kansas State to the wire. Like, they could have easily been in the Elite Eight. But that tournament result masked a lot about that team last year, to the point where it was like, look at Tom Izzo beating the portal wave, beating the new trend in college basketball, doing it his way, trusting in his guys. They're bringing their guys back other than Hauser. Like, he tanked this team's opportunity of really being a legit contender in the Big Ten, a legit, like, deep team in the tournament. Yes, they almost were last year. If he went out and got a bona fide five-man to go with some of these guards. Now, the guards other than Tyson Walker are not playing well enough, but this is falling on Izzo's plate of not adjusting to the times and for being stubborn for some reason, because you know where Tyson Walker came from? Oh, yeah, he was a transfer. So your best player is a transfer, and yet you're sitting there saying, I don't want to mess with the portal. I'm not going to boost my roster. We're going to play Matty Sissoko and Carson Cooper down low. Heck, we'll play both of them at the same time. And here you are.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think Izzo is doing a really poor job this year, and it's about time. Like, my take on Michigan State, too, is you even look at this roster with the veterans and experience they have. Who's going to be scared of Michigan State in the Big Ten going forward unless Tom Izzo changes? Like, this team isn't very good, and now they're going to lose Tyson Walker, and they're going to lose Hogard and Hall, and I think Akins has another year, but, like, if he's awful and Izzo starts benching him, here comes the portal for him.
Xavier Booker
maybe
might transfer.
Xavier Booker might. If he doesn't change, Michigan State is not going to be feared by anyone going forward in the Big Ten. It's just not going to happen. I mean, he can recruit, he can bring in big-time freshmen and develop them and whatnot, but at some point, like, this is where we are at in college basketball. Now, after this year, you're going to lose a ton from a team that's going to underwhelm for like 3 straight years. I mean, you look at the last 3 years, obviously they went to the Final Four in 2019 with Cassius Winston and Xavier Tillman.
Mm-hmm.
Since that point, Michigan State has been a above average but not great team pretty much consistently.
Yeah.
They've made the tournament. They go on all about how, Michigan State's made, 28 straight tournaments or whatever. That's really impressive to do. I'm not downplaying that at all. But they've kind of squeaked in there the last 4 years. And they're going to do that again this year I would assume. But, man, like, from an opposing Big Ten fan perspective, I could not be more concerned about Michigan State going forward, unless Tom Izzo changes his attitude about college basketball and how to attack it and how to approach building a roster. I just couldn't. That's just how I see it, because I just don't think Michigan State's going to be a top team in this conference unless he adjusts.
100% agree. And 217, or it was a 508 actually, brings up a good point. Joey Hauser also a transfer too. So
Yep.
I don't know what the heck's going on with Tom in terms of that approach, not wanting to dabble into the portal, maybe there's a difference between he thought like recruiting over my own guys, but when your guys are Sissoko and like Carson Cooper, come on, man, what are you doing? It brought up a point. I know we got to catch a break here real quick. But don't be like the St. Louis Cardinals. Don't trend towards, we're a World Series contender. We're going to go to the NLCS a bunch of times. Oh, wait, then making the playoffs is good enough. We're just going to make the playoffs. Look at the run of playoff appearances. We'll still do things wrong. And then oh, wait, we stink. Michigan State could be in that type of snowball effect. We'll see. It's still early enough, and they got enough talent. But early indications for the Spartans so far are pretty poor. Catch one more break, wrap up the show. This is The Drive.
Local, personal, trusted. Hi, this is Ata Durakan with First Federal Savings Bank of Champaign-Urbana, and we've been serving Champaign County since 1908. Our institution is safe, strong, and stable. We operate on a foundation of responsible and sound practices, and you can rest easy knowing we're your bank. Rated 5-star superior by Bauer Financial Inc., fast, friendly, and local, with local loan decisions and underwriting. If you're not already banking with us, give us a try, and we think you'll love it here. First Federal Savings Bank, 356bank.com, member FDIC, equal housing lender, NMLS 435120.
Jeremiah 29:11 states, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." What a comfort we have in this passage, as the Lord is telling Jeremiah, I care for you and will take care of you. If you are in despair and think you have no hope, pray to the Lord for guidance. See how your life can be changed and the lives of those around you. This message brought to you by the Blossom Basket Florist.
What difference does it make to a hurting world that some of us call ourselves Christians? That's the question that Empty Tomb is helping to answer. On a local level, church people work through Empty Tomb to meet people at their points of need. On a global level, Empty Tomb's mission match is designed to help churches stop under 5 child deaths. These work happen because Christians care. If you want more information, see emptytomb.org or call 217-356-2262. Together, we can change the world in Jesus' name.
Finishing up here on the drive with Tay and Piper, ESPN Radio 93.5.
Can we wrap with one question off college hoops real quick? Since you were gone all week and you'll be gone tomorrow, and I know Lon and Jay were talking about it on Monday, but I feel like we need to just get a quick opinion from you on the college football playoff decision, because that's the hot topic. Florida State getting left out.
Man.
Because we had the whole breakdown of the scenarios, and we were going through it.
We did.
And we just assumed, hey, Florida State wins, and they're in.
Yep.
And they end up – it says 50-50 of a debate as I've ever seen.
It's so tough. I think you convinced me, and as I was up in the air about it, that to see the best games, I'm fine with it. Like, I'm not saying it's the right decision. I'm not even saying that's what the committee should have been basing it off of. But as a fan, I think that I wanted to see, especially as someone that doesn't want to watch Michigan win the title, admittedly, that for them to get tested by the best team that can go face them. Like, in terms of the resume, yeah, I know that, like Florida State beating Clemson doesn't look as good probably now as it did a handful of weeks ago, or what you would have thought it looked like at the beginning of the season. It's really hard to argue, or just to wrap your head around a team in a power conference winning all their games and getting left out over teams that actually lost in their schedule. So I get the uproar, I get the anger, and then also I think it's easy to kind of sit here, and one of my buddies brought up a good point as far as it's easy for us to say what Florida State would have done in the playoff, and I do think that they probably would have gotten owned in a matchup against Michigan, but there have been some teams that, like Ohio State losing quarterbacks. It was Braxton Miller, then they lost to – they ended up starting Cardale Jones. That was the third.
They lost Braxton Miller and J.T. Barrett. And they started Cardale Jones.
And they still – did they win the title that year?
They won the title.
Yeah.
I will say, in that case – I get that argument. Ohio State also beat